First things first, posture. You know, that's the first thing you've got to think about, because that's kind of going to determine everything that comes after. So you might have noticed that the way I sit, so this is just when I'm sitting, by the way, is that I've kind of got the base so that it's sat on my right leg. Now, a lot of people, and this is how I would have probably, and I might sit like that sometimes, putting it on the right leg there, yeah, so right leg or left leg, like this. But I tend to put the base down the center, so the strap here is kind of touching this right leg, and I suppose you would say that the cutaway here is around the left leg, but I have the strap at a certain height so that when I stand up, it doesn't move. Now, the upside to that is that if you're practicing something and, you know, you're used to playing it while you sat down, when you when you stand up, it's going to feel exactly the same in both hands. I try and emulate the position of my bass when I'm stood, when I'm sat down, and vice versa. I don't want them to be different. So the bass is actually not resting on my legs. It's actually just hanging a little bit above. I mean, I'm not like Mark King. I don't have it right up here. It's you know, it's at a pretty standard kind of height, but it does. I don't sit it on the legs. The strap is there so that it's sat down the middle, pretty much in classical guitar posture. So it's right down the middle. So that, because if you think about it, you know, when you sit like that and it's on one leg, like either side, when you stand up, you don't stand with it side on. You stand with it down the middle. So that's how I sit. And you know, when I stand, I've got the strap set so that when I sit down, it won't move. Okay? I know some people have it really low, some people have it really high. I mean, you can have it where you want. So we're just talking about me. But one of the things to bear in mind with posture, with this stuff, is that the actual position of the neck, how you have it, you have to excuse me messing around with these in-ears. Since I stood up, it's got all messed up. So when you need to get a bigger stretch, it often helps to move the neck up. If you have, as an extreme, if the bass was down here, you just try stretching your hand out like this. If you do that and then put it up against the fretboard, the more you bring it down like that, the more it's going to twist your arm. If you really want to get a massive stretch, like if I'm doing like 7th to the 13th fret or something like that, right? I can't do that. Well, I suppose I could if it was like that. I'd have to really raise it. The higher you have the neck, the easier it'll be. Now, obviously, you're never going to be doing that stretch. But, you know, that's just an extreme. But having the neck kind of tilted upwards a little bit more like that just makes things a little bit easier for... let's say it's like that. It just makes things a little bit easier, okay? So that's where, you know, when you've got it like this, I mean, none of this is wrong, by the way. It's just how I do it. But I always find that, you know, raising my hand, if I'm ever going to be doing, you know, just some kind of big stretch thing, I'll always raise the neck up. If you try it yourselves, you'll see what I mean. It's, you know, if you're trying to do a bigger stretch, just raise the neck up a little bit and it just seems a little bit easier. So that's kind of the posture thing. So next up, let's look at the left hand, okay? So you'll all have probably heard the standard thing. If you're going to be, you know, having good technique, you put the thumb in the back of the neck there, you don't have it round here, and, you know, that gives you a better stretch. Now, that is true, but there are times when you won't want to do that. Like, sometimes you'll see some of my videos where I start talking about actually bringing the thumb round. If you're doing, you know, that kind of thing, or the thumb actually is very useful then. You know, doing slap stuff, you can bring the thumb round. If you need to mute things where you're going to be playing something like, if you're just moving between those fingers or maybe across two strings, it helps to actually sometimes bring the thumb round. You can actually use it. But the standard, default is always going to be thumb in the back. You don't want it right round here. You don't want it all the way over here, just in the middle, okay? The bigger the stretch, so, when I was doing that, you bring your thumb further to this side, okay? So when I did that 7 to 13 stretch, I've got the thumb here, right on this edge. But you wouldn't want it like that all the time. It's uncomfortable. So in the middle is the norm, okay? Now, one thing that a lot of people do is they will have the fingers coming in at an angle like this, okay? Notice how you can rotate the hand like this. So probably the most efficient way to play would be with the fingers parallel to the frets rather than like this, okay? You don't want it all the way around here, but kind of use the second and third fingers as your guide. If you've got those kind of parallel to the frets, then you're going to be in a fairly decent position. The other thing to bear in mind, and this plays a part for people that think that they don't have a big stretch, is to make sure that the little finger, the pinky, is actually level with, let's say as a default, level with that E string. So let's say that we're going to play on the E string, okay? And let's say I'm just going to do a one finger per fret, which I'll get back to in a minute because you don't want to use that all the time. But let's say that I am doing that. So let's say I'm just playing A sharp, B, and up to C there, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th frets on the E string. Now, when you do that, you want to be sure that you can play all of those with that fourth finger reaching the E string. A lot of people will find that their stretch is compromised because they're coming in at an angle, okay? And it's like, oh, I can't get the fourth finger round. Well, you need to rotate the hand. Look at my thumb there, okay? You can pivot the thumb, okay? So if I've got the thumb like this, okay? I'm bringing it out just so you can see, right? So like that, you'd be coming in at an angle like this. When you do that, notice your fourth finger is way over here, right? But the more you rotate it round, see how that fourth finger comes to meet the E string, okay? So if you do that, you'll probably find that your thumb is going a little bit more up the fretboard there. So you bring it round so that the fingers can all line up. Now, you don't have to have them, each one on a fret. Let's say that we've just got it like that, okay, just over 3 frets. You still want to make sure that they can all line up on the E string. You don't want one of them to be back here. That's the position, okay? Pivot the thumb around. So it's one thing to say, put the thumb in the back of the neck, but really you want to also pivot the hand round so that it's like this. And some of you might suddenly find that, you couldn't do one finger per fret before, but when you pivot, all of a sudden you can. The key here is to just move the hands and the arms around and the bass around until you can do things. Just messing around. Don't worry too much about, oh, this is the correct way. Just move things around and find what works. Find out how you need to adjust your body to make it work. And if you get in pain with anything, then you know it's probably wrong. You need to, adjust again. So, okay. So that's the position there. So what was I going to talk about after that? I've made some notes so that I don't forget anything. So yeah, the other thing is micro shifting. So let's say that we're going to look at, let's say, a one finger per fret. And I'm not doing it all the way down here. Let's do it up here. So again, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th frets on the E string. So I've rotated. Now let's say that your hands are really small or you just have a problem with a big stretch, okay? Now keep the same finger assignment. So it's going to be first finger for the 5th fret, second finger for the 6th fret, third finger for the 7th fret, and the fourth finger for the 8th fret, okay? Keep that same finger assignment, but let's say your hands are tiny. Like my daughter's, little, or my wife actually, she's got tiny hands. but you got like little hands, okay? And that's all you can stretch. Well, don't worry about that. Keep that same finger assignment, but then just move the hand. And the key is to move at the right time so that you don't get any of those big gaps, because you don't want this. You know, bop, 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 bop. You want ba, 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 ba. You want them all going into each other. So the key is to move as required. Move when you need the note. So see, I'm keeping the fingers like that, right? But I'm still using first, second, third, fourth fingers, okay? But I'm just moving the hand. Now again, I'm using a ridiculous extreme. But if you can do it, you know, with the fingers like this, then you've got no excuse, okay? The other thing to do when you're trying to work out what your actual stretch is, okay, is to, let's say, hold the hand out like this. Maybe try to stretch it. Don't go stupid with the actual stretch, but just stretch them out, you know, at a reasonable stretch. Then turn it round and don't put the thumb on the back of the neck yet. Just put the fingers down so that the first finger is, you know, and the fourth finger are both on the E string, let's say. Keep that thumb out there and then bring the thumb down. You might be surprised at how much bigger the stretch is than you thought before. You know, do that, bring it down, move the bass so that you can do that, okay? And that'll be the position that you need, and then put that thumb in the back. That's what you're aiming for. You're aiming to be able to do that there, like that, okay? Now, to be fair, all that will do is give you a stretch between the first and fourth fingers. It's not really going to make a difference between those, you know, first and second and third kind of thing. But I find that that's actually what a lot of people have problems with, just doing that. So that's another way to work out what your stretch actually is. Because I always hear people saying, oh no, I can't do this because I don't have a stretch. And it's like, well, most of the time it's technique. I've got a friend that lives nearby. He's a professional bass player. And I've known him for years and years and years. And he's tiny. He's only like, what is he, about, 5 foot max, right? So he's short. He's got little hands. He's a great bass player. You know, he's been playing bass all his life. Lots and lots and lots of different bands. You know, he's done a lot. He doesn't have any problems because he knows how to move his hand. So, you know, he wouldn't be able to probably stretch that, but he doesn't need to because he just moves it around. You know, just move the hand around. And another thing, you know, with that micro shifting is that, let's say, right, and I've used this example before in previous live hangs, but a lot of you won't have seen them. Let's say we take an F major arpeggio, okay, a big stretch one, right? So for this, we're going to be using F, A, C, F, A, C, F, right? First finger, first fret, 5th fret on the E string, then 3rd fret on the A and D string, and then 7th fret on the D string, 5th fret on the G string, and then the 10th fret on the G string. Oops, well done. Okay, now that's a fairly big stretch, and I can kind of do it, but I never would. There is absolutely no point in trying to stretch that. What I would do if I had to play that, I mean, usually I'd use an open string to be fair, but let's say I need to do that stretch, right? I get the hand into a fairly wide span, as big as I can get, and then I just move F to the A. Can you see how that first finger moves from the 1st fret, and then when I go for the 4th finger on the 5th fret, the 1st finger is there over the 3rd fret. Just try practicing that. 1st to the 5th fret on the E string. 1st finger, 4th finger. Look, I'm moving. I'm not stretching. I can do it. But I never would, ever. I'd never do that. Now, like I said, if you're not careful, you'll get a little bit of a gap in between. You don't want that. What you want is ba ba. So you have to be quick and you have to time it correctly. So you don't move until you need the note. So let's say that I'm doing this on quarter notes. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So I don't move until 2. So 1, 2. If I do it really, really, really slow to accentuate it. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay? You don't want a gap. So the slower the tempo, the faster you've got to move. But I'm not stretching, okay? And it doesn't matter how small the hand is for that. You just have to jump a little bit further. One of the best examples of this, of how this can work, is Danny Moe Morris, who you might have seen on SBL. He's a tutor from Berkeley College. He does a lot of the left-hand muting thing. So instead of using a sponge or a mute or anything like that, if you fret, let's say I'm playing the C there, 3rd fret of the A string, and then you bring these fingers down, you get that muting sound, okay? Now when you do that, you're limited to only using one finger, okay? You got to use that all the time, because you're using the other fingers to mute, okay? Now, I've seen him whipping up and down, doing that with these wide stretch arpeggios. Okay, there's that F major. And that's fairly quick. So if you can do it with one finger, I'm pretty sure that when it comes to adding the other fingers, then, you don't need to be stretching. So it's all that thing. I see this so many times. I've actually had people argue with me, saying, no, it's my hands. I can't do this. I can't do that, And it never is. It's always technique, and I'm proving it's technique there. Because if you can do it with one finger, then you definitely can do it with more. You just have to shift, okay? So now let's have a look at the one finger per fret thing. So I talked about how, if you're going to do one finger per fret, then, you need to micro shift. But that one finger per fret thing is only useful when it's useful. So let's say I'm doing something like that. Now, if I'm coming up to something like that, like a little minor kind of thing, I'm going to use one finger per fret because it's the most efficient way of doing it. First finger, third finger, fourth finger. So there I'm playing D, E, and F. 5th, 7th, and 8th frets on the A string. So it makes sense to play with the first finger, third finger, fourth finger. I mean, you could use one finger, if you were doing the Danny Moe thing, but one finger per fret works. Now, if I'm playing something like this, or octaves, you're not going to use the first and third fingers, are you? Using one finger per fret, that would be first finger and third finger. You're going to use first and fourth fingers. Nobody is going to play with first and... Well, I mean, you might use first and third fingers if it's... I don't know, if it's some kind of... I don't know. Some kind of weird riff. But everybody is going to use first and fourth fingers. So there's an example. You don't need first one finger per fret. Most bass lines where you're playing... something like that, there is no point. There is no point in using one finger per fret. How many bass lines are going to be limited to 4 frets? They don't. They move around. There's no. How does that work with one finger per fret? So one finger per fret is only useful when it's useful. Scalar lines, that kind of thing, where you just, if you're playing like a major scale, yes, one finger per fret works great. But if I'm playing first and fourth fingers again, so in those instances, I'm going to be so I'm on an F, okay? First fret there with the first finger, and the hand position is basically 3 frets. To be honest, in that area of the bass, I will always be doing that. Unless I'm doing one of those scale lines again. But for general bass lines, I'll use the first finger for a lot of it. You can use first and fourth fingers for a lot of stuff. It's all first and fourth fingers there. So don't feel like one finger per fret is this, in stone thing that you've just got to abide by. That's good technique. It's like what I said about the thumb in the back of the neck. You have to adapt depending on what the line is. Yes, there are certain things where, yes, it works like this. But don't feel like, don't feel like you always need to be sticking to some rigid kind of principles, because it doesn't work like that. Like Bruce Lee said, be water, my friend. Come on. Strap lock's gone. So that's that. That's the one finger per fret thing. The other thing with the fretting hand is the curled finger versus flat finger thing, right? So the other thing that people will say is curl the fingers, okay? Which is true. If you're going to be playing like a scalar line, like that thing I just played, I'm going to curl the fingers. And I'll come back to why that is in a second. But for a lot of stuff, that thing that I was playing there, I'm not curling my fingers at all. So I've just kind of got a flat finger. I'm kind of playing with that part of the finger. I'm not playing with the very tip. I'm not curling it like this. It's just sat there, which is probably how most of you actually play all the time. I'm probably not. That's nothing crazy new to most of you. That's probably how you all play. But there's this curled finger thing. Now, curled fingers will allow you to avoid that kind of typewriter finger thing. You know, when your fingers start doing this kind of thing, they're all over the place. Well, if you're playing something, let's take something very simple. Let's take a C major scale, right? Now, if I have flat fingers for that, like I did down here, and let's say I'm playing like that, it's a lot harder to avoid that typewriter finger thing. The fingers naturally come up and down more. Now, when you curl the fingers over, there's less movement. So have a look at that. So I'm curling over. See how there's less movement? Now flat fingers. You see there's more movement. I'm exaggerating a little bit. My old bass teacher when I was at university, Sean, he was it was pretty tough on me. Every week he'd give me a new classical piece to learn. He'd play one half of it. So let's say it's a Bach Invention or a Bach Prelude or something like that. We did all kinds of stuff, Elgar, all kinds of things. But let's say it was a Bach Prelude. He'd give me the music for it, and I'd have to learn, let's say, the bass part. So it'd be the left hand on the piano, and then he'd play the top part, and then we'd come back the next week and we'd play it as a duet. And it was good reading practice because there was no tab. It's all reading. So that'd be the assignment for the next week, kind of a technical kind of thing. And we kept doing that. It was great. I used to love it. But when it came to playing them, he would. So let's say the beginning's like that. He would get a book and he'd put it above my hands because at the time my fingers I'd got spider fingers. They were all over the place. Like this. So he'd put this book over me. He used to just keep saying to me, curl the fingers, keep them down, keep them down. And that's when he used to put a book above it and I'd be like, oh, because I couldn't see it. I didn't realize I was doing it. It was only when he put the book above my fingers that I was like hitting the book. So curled fingers will allow you to avoid that, so you don't have the spider finger thing. The flat finger thing is fine for most bass lines, to be fair. Now, that brings me to something that I call home position. Now, some of you might have seen this. I know a lot of you are new to my live hangs, and maybe even new to the channel. There's like about 900 videos on the channel, so I used to think wrongly that everybody had just seen all the videos, you know, so I didn't want to repeat what I'd said on other ones. But yeah, there's a thing that I tend to call home position. That's just my name for it. It's just a thing that everybody does. And I always used to think, well, what's that called? What is it? But there wasn't a name for it. So there you go. It's called, I call it home position. So let's say I'm playing a C, 3rd fret of the A string. So the basic home position I'm talking about, to get into that position, take your first finger, put it over that 3rd fret there, so you're about to play the C, but don't play it, okay? Just lightly across the A, D, and G strings. And then you'll probably get some harmonics, right? Then bring the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers down, and the 2nd and 3rd fingers will probably come a little bit past the E string there. And now you'll just get dead notes, okay? So that is the home position. It's a default safe position. You're on stage, loud, amps up. No matter what happens, if your volume's up, you're not going to have an accident. You're not having any of this. And that's happened to me a lot. You're not going to get any kind of problems no matter what happens. If somebody comes up and starts messing around with your bass while you're playing, doesn't matter. It's safe, right? So, whenever you plug in, because when you're on stage, even in a fairly small venue, it'll be fairly loud. You know, if I was to put a bass amp that was, even in a small kind of venue, and I turned it up to what it was in there, and I put it in here, oh my God, it'd be way too loud. So, if you've got everything turned up, get in that position. Everything's safe. Next, let's say I want to play that C. What I do, all at the same time, so simultaneously, you fret the C, raise the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, and pluck. Now notice that I stressed simultaneously, because you don't want to do this. Press the finger down, raise those fingers, and then pluck, because you're going to have a gap. So you want to aim for everything to be at the time that the note is required. Like I was saying earlier on, when we were moving up through those notes. When I move, if it's a big jump, you move when the note is required. So you get away from the gaps in there. Boom, boom, boom. You don't want that. You need nice, smooth legato lines. So, all at the same time, you press the finger down, you raise the fingers, and pluck. So it's that, okay? Now, I know that sounds really obvious. A lot of you will be looking at me and going, well, of course, that's what we all do. But you would be surprised. I've seen so many students that I've had. That doesn't happen all the time. But I don't think a lot of people realise. So, we're going from totally muted, no noise, no nothing, to a note. We're allowing the note through. In other lessons, I've talked about this like a house party. Let's say that somebody's got like a 6K rig in a big house, some crazy house party going on, everything going on in there. But it's got very good soundproof doors, okay? Soundproof windows. You can't hear anything. It's like a professional studio, right? But then you open the door and you're like, oh man. And then you close the door and whew. So open the door. That's what we've got here. We're opening the door. So we've got the door closed. Open the door and allow it through. And then when you want to choke it off, go back to the home position. Don't think about releasing pressure and bringing these fingers down. Get so that you know the feeling of being in that home position. Then when you let the note through, you just go back to it. So you get a kind of muscle memory for that position. Okay. Also, I'm bringing that picking finger down to help with the muting. Totally dead. No noise. Note comes through. Bada bing. Okay. So that home position is really, really useful. And when it comes to slapping, you know all that and that, all of that kind of stuff with that, you know that thing. Well, that is all home position. If you actually bring the fingers back down to choke, you actually get that click like that. Okay. That's actually the riff that I learned to do that with. It's a Stu Ham one. So all we're doing is that. And the other thing is that with home position, somebody earlier on was asking about slapping and muting, you know, how you deal with all of that. Well, home position is great for it because we're, like I said, we're going from absolute dead silence and then just allowing the note through. So so I've got that C there. Choke it off, play it, choke it off. You get way better note control by thinking in these terms. So silence is the default rather than the note. You allow the notes to come through. It's just a little bit of a change of perspective. If you're thinking about silence as your kind of default point, then you'll always just return to that naturally. So, I mean, there's a lot more with that home position that I could talk about because you can start actually experimenting with different note position, note durations, so note control. But just be aware of it to begin with, and then you can just start building up from that. So that's the home position. So next up, let's move on to the picking hand. So, you know, we're now doing a little bit of muting with this, but obviously a lot of the muting when you're finger picking comes from the thumb, okay? Now, some people will just anchor that thumb on a pickup and then it stays there. I never do that really. I mean, there might be times when I do that if I'm, depending on the line, sometimes you have to move across strings very quickly. But if you're just moving progressively across the strings, then you want to be moving the thumb. That thumb is so powerful. It can do so much in terms of the anchoring of it. Now, if you really wanted to get into floating thumb position, like people like Todd Johnson, where you move the thumb as one whole mechanism. Gary Willis does it as well. That's really, really good. And that's really good for 5-string and 6-string basses as well. If I'm playing 5-string, I tend to use floating thumb more. I don't on 4-string because I just never did it when I first started out. I just learned to use this movable anchor. But let's say that I'm playing on the E string and I'm just going to be playing a... damn. I mean, in-ears keep popping out. Ugh. So, let's say that we're playing a G. I'll play 3rd fret there on the E string, okay? If I'm playing that, I'm in my home position, fingers there ready. So I've got the thumb there on the pickup, and then we just let it come through. Simple, okay? Now, if I'm going to be moving to the A string for something, you can actually keep the thumb there. That would be fine. If you just hanging around on those 2 strings, the E and the A string, just keep that thumb there on the pickup, because when you bring the finger back using rest stroke, so if the finger comes back to that next string, it mutes that string off. It mutes the E string because it's coming back to rest on it, okay? So you don't have to worry too much about muting the E string when you're just moving between those two. And that is something worth mentioning if you don't use rest stroke. So rest stroke meaning if... it keeps falling out. If I'm playing that G there again, I'm picking... Let's get this bass up so you can see it. Can you see? I'm kind of doing this. Like a tweezer kind of action. It's coming into the finger. Okay? That's rest stroke. It's coming to rest on the next string or the thumb. Okay? So then, if I was to play that D, I'm still there. I've still got the thumb on the pickup, but the finger now comes to rest on the E string. And that mutes the E string. So, now if I'm going to be moving across and I'm going to be playing on the D string, I really want to have the thumb on the E string at least. You can move across to the A string, but I'd probably just move onto the E string with the thumb. That way the E string's taken care of and the rest stroke takes care of the muting on the A string. Okay, so then when I get up to the G string, I'm going to put the thumb on the A string and I'm going to angle it back a little bit to take care of the E string. And then when I pick, the rest stroke takes care of the D string and the E and A string are locked down. Okay? So that's the general idea. There are times when you might want to bring the thumb all the way across to the D string. You've got to be a bit careful then because the E string can ring out. That's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid residual noise from the lower, thicker strings. Because if I just put the thumb on the D string and I'm playing here, if I stop, you probably can't hear it there. But if this was loud, there's a rumble from that E string. 5 strings are a nightmare for this. You have to really think about your muting a lot more. It's not as bad on a 4 string, but it's just something to pay attention to now. You know, when you're first getting started with it. Now, one thing you can do with this is practice moving across on a scale. So if I was going to be working across on a C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, start there. Let's get closer so you can see. I'll bring it round there like that. So let's say I'm starting on the first finger. So when I come to move to the A string, I actually shift there because I'm moving right across. I move early. So C, D, I actually shift the thumb onto the E string when I get to the E. And that's an exercise you can try. Just first finger, second finger, first finger, I'm alternate picking there. When it comes to playing that E with that first finger, move the thumb and you kind of have this action. Try and get it right in. You see that little jump that I've got? We're isolating the move there. If I get it right across. And then when I get over onto the D string, then I shift the thumb onto the A string. And I don't actually move it until I get to the B there. So I'm always doing it when the shift usually comes with the thumb when you're playing with the first finger. It's a little bit trickier to do it with the second finger. So that way we're always keeping that residual noise down, okay? Now the other thing with that is obviously alternate picking versus one finger or 3 fingers. So if you're going to be playing, doing that kind of movement with the thumb, you can actually just try with one finger. So if I'm playing, like I will play with one finger a lot of the time, actually, even if I'm playing soloistic kind of things. If I don't need 2 fingers, I don't use them. If all I've got to do is go, I'm not going to use 2 fingers. There's no point. I just use one. Now there, I needed it because I had 2 little ghost notes. Okay, so I just use 2 fingers when it's required. But the rest of the time, it's 1 finger. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't need to do it, or well, I mean, when we were talking about, what was it earlier on, the 1 finger per fret, you know, it works when it works. It's needed when it's needed. But if you don't need to do it, don't just think that it's like, I need to play alternate picking all the time because that is the correct way to do it. You don't need to do that. Like I said, be water, my friend. So just 1 finger. And I've got that flat hand there. I'm not curling the fingers. Look, I'm using home position though. See, the hand there, starting with silence. I would consider the muting way more important than trying to keep a rigid alternate picking. Okay? So then if you want to try the alternate picking, again, a standard C major scale. Just try working through alternate picking each time. Start with the first finger on that. You'll find that it helps with the actual ascending and descending. I won't get too much into that, but trust me, if you start on the first finger for a C major, well, any major scale pattern like that, it'll work for you. So the aim is to actually alternate consistently through it. You can rake as well, but you know, that's not the point of this exercise. This exercise is to just get your alternate picking working. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oops, and back to 1. You'll know you've got it right if you're back on 1 when you get, as in 1, the index finger, when you get back to C. The part that will probably throw you is when you get back onto the E string on the descent, because you've got to come down on the second finger, which is the bigger finger. You'll always find the second finger the easier one for moving in ascent, transitioning to a higher string. First finger's okay, but coming down, you'll find the second finger is a little bit of a pain when you're moving back. The perfect example of this is octave patterns. If you're playing like, you'll probably want to play first finger, second finger, first finger, and then that middle finger, the second finger, that takes the upper octave because it's the longer finger. Now try doing it the other way around. Try playing the lower note with the middle finger and then the upper note with the index finger. Notice how that just feels weird? First finger first. Yeah. That's cool. Second finger. Now, it is really, really useful to be able to get used to that coming back on the second finger, because there's times when you might have to do that. Depends on the line. But most of the time, if you have a choice, you'll probably want to ascend with the second finger and descend with the first finger. So that's the alternate picking. What else were we going to talk about? Okay, yeah. So tied into this is also a little bit of tone. Okay, so damn thing. It's because of when I stood up earlier on. I've pulled the thing behind me. So yeah, position of the picking hand. Now, this is one of those things that can make probably the biggest difference out of everything that you can do on bass, right? So I'm going to demonstrate this here, but if you're listening on a laptop or even if you've got headphones on, you might not notice as much. But I guarantee if you're playing through an amp, especially if you're on stage in a mix, this is gold dust, okay? Right. So the standard way a lot of people might start out playing, especially if you've got a precision bass, is going to be over the neck pickup here, roughly in this central part. So if I'm playing something like, we get a pretty mellow, sort of deep kind of tone. Now, if I was to move that picking hand back here, we get a much more middly tone. This is a lot deeper, a lot more resonant, a lot more hollow sounding. This one's got more of that kind of funky kind of middle. So if I was going to be playing, I'm going to pick back here because it gives me that tight articulation. If I'm in the middle, it's got more of that woody kind of hollow tone. That's way better for those kind of deeper bass lines, right? Now, neither of these are better, but if you're in a band, right, and you're worrying about your tone, you're thinking, man, it just doesn't feel right. It just, the sound's not there. I need more bass. And you start going over to your amp and turning up the bass, and then think, oh man, maybe I need to turn down the mids. Maybe I need to up the mids. Oh, maybe it needs more bass. Maybe I need to turn the treble down. And then you start doing these kind of things. Low mids, maybe. That comes later. The first thing you need to do is check where your hand is. So if the hand is back here, you're going to get that tight kind of sound. You're not going to have as much of that kind of standard low, that kind of thing. You've just got more of this kind of burp, right? So the first thing to do is check where you are. If you're near the bridge, move it further down. You could even move nearer to the neck. Check out the difference on your own, with your own bass through an amp. Because it's like I say, it's hard to hear on a laptop or a phone, you know. Just move the hand around. And I mean, there are hundreds of different tones between there and here. You can even play right over the neck if I play it one octave above. You almost get a flute-like... I say flute, it's not really a flute, it's pretty low for a flute. More like a bassoon. But you get this kind of hollow harmonic-y kind of sound because you're playing at that overtone there, that node. So you have to pick a lot lighter when you do that. And that brings me to the angle of attack. So if you're playing in this, and actually the velocity. So if you're playing in this area, in this middle area, the harder you pick, the more likely you are to get clank. Now, a lot of you might want that, but some of you might not. Now, if you're going for that kind of Steve Harris kind of thing, if you're wanting that clank, then great. If you don't want the clank, you need to lighten up. Just two different kind of sounds. Both are useful depending on what you want. Sometimes you can get that snap out of it. So if you're wanting that kind of little burp, which funnily enough you won't get back here. You'll get that tight articulation, but you won't get that snap. If you want the snap, just sporadically. So if you're playing. That kind of little snap in there, or you need to be a little bit closer to the middle, okay? But like I said, if you want that kind of thing with the those little kind of articulate little notes, that's where you need to get closer to the bridge. And like I said, if you're in a band and you're having problems with your tone, that comes first. Move the hand. Experiment. Even moving just a fraction can make all the difference, okay? Don't worry about where your pickups are on the bass, if it's a precision, oh yeah, but I've got to be near the pickup. Don't worry about that. Just check it out. Just move around. See how it, see how it sounds. I mean, obviously, there's loads of other things you can do, like pickup bias, and, if you've got an active, you can start messing around with that, turn your passive tone down. There's all kinds of stuff. Fart around with the amp. All kinds of stuff, but the timbre itself of the bass can be changed this way. When you're dealing with tone controls and EQ and stuff like that, you're really only messing with actual frequencies. You're just relative volumes between frequencies. But when you're actually moving the hand here, that's not what's at play. You're actually changing the actual sound of the bass itself. You're not adjusting the frequencies. I mean, in some ways you are actually doing that a little bit, but it's actually the actual touch of the string in there. And this is why when people say that, the sound is in the hands. Yes, amps and basses and effects all have a lot of influence in that. But in terms of the actual tone, the difference between that and that is massive when you're actually playing in a band situation. So, should we do any more with that? I mean, I could keep going forever with this. Oh yeah, one last thing. So, as a default, I would say play lighter, okay? Play lighter and bring the volume of the amp up to compensate. You don't have to turn it right up and play, crazy light, but a lot of the time when you first start playing, the temptation is to play a fairly, with a bit of a hard hit. Now, there is a place for hitting hard, which I'll get to in a sec, but as a default, you want to play lighter. So there's a couple of reasons for this. One of them is just that dynamically, if you play lighter generally, it means that you've got somewhere to go. You can actually put a snap in there. You can play harder for effect. Let's say that you're playing in a thrash metal band. You might want to play hard all the time. You might want lots and lots of clank all the time. But the problem you get there is that you can actually reduce a lot of the low end when you actually start hitting too fast. You get all transient and you don't allow it to for any of that bottom end to come through. Now, the other thing is sustain. If you've ever had problems getting sustain, if you're playing in a band, you stood there on stage, I know that this used to happen to me years ago, playing a ballad, playing something slow, whatever it is, and you play the note, and you think, man, it just died off. Now, there, you can hear it, and it seems to be ringing out. That's how most basses will sound. But you play in a band, you play it, and you think, that kind of feeling in the lower, in the floor, that kind of nice warm feeling, that kind of just tapers off almost immediately. And you're like, man, I need more. I need it to last longer. So you start thinking, oh, what do? I know, I'll start using a compressor. And you start messing around with the compressor, trying to increase the sustain. And then, maybe if I mess around with the tone controls, I might be able to bring it out. Maybe I need to turn the bass up. No, play lighter. The reason for that is that if you're playing harder, like that, you get this initial transient, right? And you'll set your volume to the transient, because if you don't, you're going to overload, right? So if you're whacking it, if you've got the gain turned up quite a bit, or the volume up, and then you do that, all of a sudden it farts out, and you're like, oh man. Or, you might have set the volume at a normal, maybe 12 o'clock, something like that. And you think, I need a bit more. And then you start hitting loud, harder. Don't do that. You'll get the transient, but then you get this drop off. If you were to see the actual curve of it, you see the transient, and then you've got this immediate drop off, and then it levels out if you've got the attack, decay, sustain, release, you got the attack. Then it drops down, then you get the very quick decay, and then the sustain down here, and then eventually the release. So you've got this ding, then comes down, holds at that. Now, if you've set your volume a little bit lower, and everything that you've sound checked with was loud like that, it's based on the transient. So the actual body of the note that's sustaining is lower down. If you hit lighter, so you don't get as much of the transient, you can turn the volume up more, and you'll have a much more consistent attack, decay, sustain, release like this. I mean, it won't be like flat, but it's not far off. If you're playing like that, lighter, you've got a nice consistent tone, whereas that, it'll still drop down to that, but you got that whack at the beginning. So play lighter as the default, and then when you need to play harder, you've got somewhere to go. You can still play harder. I don't play light all the time, but if I'm on stage, I generally, if I'm just playing regular old bass lines, I will be playing lighter. I think you'll find that most people that play live a lot do naturally just play lighter, because you generally get used to playing through big rigs and stuff like that. First time you play through a massive PA, the sound in the room, you're like, oh, it can be quite intimidating. You know, if it's like boom, you play a note and it's like, wow, the whole thing rumbles, and you actually become more tentative. The last thing you're going to be wanting to do is wacka wacka with your whacker. So you're not going to probably want to do that. So you get used to playing lighter as a default. But when you're a beginner or you're not used to playing through big rigs and stuff like that, you generally going to start whacking it. I used to practice without an amp, and to be fair, I still probably do most of the time. But when I very first started out, I very rarely played through an amp. And I'd be hitting like really hard all the time, and I didn't even realise it. It was simply because I couldn't hear it. I was just playing without the amp. So I had to pick it hard to hear it. And like I say, I still do that. I very rarely, when I'm, just general practice, unless I'm learning something, I got to work something out by ear, then I'll sit there and I'll have the bass to it. But if I'm just sat there playing, I'll just play, unamplified. Downside to that is that you just start naturally playing harder than you should. And it can take quite a bit to actually, curb that kind of problem. So that's another big tip, and it's a technical tip. It's not a tone. It affects tone, but it is technique that's guiding the tone in that sense. So that's technique for the day. So now I can go back and look through all the comments and see what we've got. In fact, we've had a fair few people arrive since the start there, so you'll still be able to go back and watch this video afterwards if you've missed out on any of the stuff that I did. And I will cut out all the garbage at the beginning with me waffling on. But let's have a look. I won't go down too far. And before I get into it, remember, like I said, it's Black Friday, so you'll be getting all those emails from all these different places saying, it's that Black Friday sale. So there is a Black Friday sale over at Talking Bass. So if you want to buy one of the courses, get on over there. It's 30% discount on everything. There's beginner bass, slap bass, theory, reading, blah-de-blah-de-blah, technique, builder, the creative bassist. There's tons of them on there now. They're all there over at Talking Bass. Greetings from Sweden. I love Sweden. I obviously, when I used to do those cruises that I used to be on, we used to go to Sweden quite a lot and visit Stockholm, and it's I love it. Thank you very much for your excellent work. Thank you very much. Do you suggest getting a 4 or 5 string bass? It depends on what you want to play. I mean, I'm a 4-stringer at heart, actually. I remember, so not that long ago, me and Scott Devine had gone out for drinks, and I remember him getting, because we went to college together, I remember him having a 6-string when I very first met him. He'd built this 6-string. And then when he started doing Scott's bass lessons, it was all 5-string. He used to use all the time. He had his Overwater. And, now he has all these crazy things that people give him. But at the time, I kept thinking, he's a 5-stringer and a 6-string guy. And then I was always playing just with 4. I mean, I've had to play 5 quite a bit, like for work. Theatre stuff and, whatever it is, you're going to get asked to play stuff that's like synth parts and things like that. If you're going to be a professional, you need a 5-string, because especially if you're reading stuff, because you're going to get handed 5-string parts. So theatre stuff, you definitely need a 5-string. But I am a 4-stringer at heart. I don't like playing 5-string that much. There's too much to think about for me. I like having a 4-string. I played 4-string for the first, but I don't think I had a 5-string for the first 10 years. What was it? Maybe the first 10 years of playing, I'd played them, other people's, but I just never bought one. That was, so first one I bought probably about 2000, something like that. Started playing in 1990, so it was like, 2000, something like that. And it was so much to think about in terms of the muting. And obviously, I've played them quite a bit, but they're not my weapon of choice. And that's why... So I asked Scott about this, and I was like, man, you use 5 strings all the time. I says, but he admitted that, like, he's a 4-stringer at heart. He actually prefers it, just like I do. It's just that, you end up having one and you play it. Because he was somebody that I just thought was a 5-stringer. That was it. But he's not. So and now, to be fair, he does play 4, I think, more on SBL. But like I say, if there's nothing wrong with just sticking with 4. Billy Sheehan plays 4-string, and he wiggles, right? So he's an example of somebody that flies around on the instrument, and he plays 4, okay? People like Hadrian Farrow, probably the greatest virtuoso on bass that's ever lived. He plays 5. So Jeff Berlin, he plays 4, and he gets around a lot. It doesn't really matter. Anthony Jackson, he always played 6. Different strokes for different folks, really. I would advise trying them out before you play them, before you buy one, that is. Does that change the note using a finger to fret and other fingers to mute the same string? No, it doesn't, no. James Jamerson was famous for playing with one finger, that's right, the hook. And he had a fantastic career, though he did come from a double bass background, that's right. But that's what I mean. It was good enough for James Jamerson. To be fair, if you ask James Jamerson to play, just some crazy, thing that's all over the fretboard, you're not going to do it with one finger, are you? So, it's... to be fair, there's a lot of things that you can. I mean, if even classical pieces. So if it was like... Put reverb on for that, so it sounds nice. I mean, you could play with one, but there's... I mean, it is a little bit limited, to be fair. But down here, it is doable with one. He used to use open strings and things, and a lot of raking to get around it. So but still, he did use one finger most of the time. Mark, I've just finished the Bass Buzz beginner to badass course. What's the best jump in on your courses from there? Looking for some continued structure. I would advise... So I've talked to Josh about this, right? Because a lot of Bass Buzz people move over to Talking Bass, which is very nice. I'm an active member on the forum over there, actually. Like, me and Josh are pretty good mates. And it became obvious from a lot of emails I was getting that people were coming from Bass Buzz to Talking Bass. So I went on the forum and, there were people asking about it. So I started replying, and now I quite like being in there. I'll just talk about, answer questions for people and stuff. Not to do with Talking Bass, just other stuff. And it's, I think Groove Trainer is probably the one to move into. That's 60 grooves. It's so Groove Trainer was... I created that because I found that when I'd done my beginner courses, people needed some way to move into bass lines, but I couldn't just have lessons on, copyrighted material. So what I did is I wrote 60 grooves that were progressive from incredibly simple. I think like the first one's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing, right? And then it gradually builds up to kind of Jaco Pastorius style 16th note funk, by the time you get to groove 60. No, there's 120. What am I talking about? There's 60 in each volume. And it very slowly builds up the technique. It introduces harmony stuff. There's lessons in there. It's not just the grooves. There's a lot of lessons before that, where I teach little bits about reading, little bits about rhythm, a lot about rhythm, about drums, how to lock in with drums, how bass lines work relative to drums. harmony, like I said, chord progressions, that is. So I talk about all that, and then and technique. I do a load on technique, and gradually build it up through the 120 grooves. So it's a progressive thing. So all of those things that I talk about, like the technique and all of that, is easier to apply when it's something like that. Single notes. It's harder to talk about rhythm and harmony and all those things and technique when it's a really difficult line. So Groove Trainer is probably the one for coming straight out of beginner to badass. The other one would be the Creative Bassist. The Creative Bassist is a huge course that basically teaches you how to write bass lines, jam bass lines, improvise bass lines, improvise fills, create fills, riffs, and then gradually, by the end of it, by the last module, there's about 100 lessons in it. By the end of it, you're into soloing, so solo improvisation. So it's all about developing a musical vocabulary, because when you want to learn how to jam with people and improvise bass lines, improvise things, make stuff up, creative stuff, it's all about creating a vocabulary. You learn to create music in the same way that you learn to speak. You basically speak through the instrument. Okay? So, you learn what certain notes sound like over certain chords. So if the chord is C major and you play a C, that's the root note. It sounds like that. But if you were playing that and you played the E over it, that's what that sounds like. If you were going to play the G, that sounds a certain way. So any note above it, there's the ninth. All of those notes sound a certain way. Now, you learn how notes sound over certain chords. You learn how successions of notes sound. You learn licks. You learn melodies. You learn everything that you learn as groupings of things. And you learn how they sound. And you gradually develop a musical vocabulary. You learn phrases in the same way that you would with speech. When you start talking, you don't just invent the language. I mean, you might if you're really clever. But, you learn from your parents and from other people around you. That's why we develop an accent and why we learn the language that we learn and why your parents sound pretty much like you, and you might start sounding like a stand-up comic that you like. The jokes you tell might be like that. You develop a vocabulary, and it's the same with music. So everything that you learn, if you're learning that kind of stuff, the kind of patterns that you're going to use are going to be, octaves, fifths, flat seven in there, with that kind of rhythm, ba, 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 ba. If you're really into rock stuff, a lot of it is going to be eighth note based, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and less of the, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. And that's more funk. I know a lot of metalheads will think it's 16th notes in metal, which it can be. It can be in a lot of thrash stuff, but a lot of the time it's eighth notes. It's just that it's played fast. So you've got that driving eighth note thing, but then you've got syncopation in a lot of funk stuff. So you gradually develop a vocabulary from that, and that's what the Creative Bassist is all about. And for every single lesson, you learn. You have exercises that you have to do. I give you homework where you have to create your own bass lines and eventually create your own solos. So Groove Trainer, Creative Bassist for people coming off beginner to badass. A lot of the beginner to badass people said that Chord Tone Essentials was really good for them, which I guess it would be, but Chord Tone Essentials is basically harmony. You basically learn every chord that there is, how it's created as arpeggios. So there's C major, there's the arpeggio. If it's a C major 7, you learn the arpeggio, for like a dominant 13 chord or whatever. So you learn every single chord, and then you learn them mapped all over the fretboard, and then you learn how to apply them in your bass lines and your fills and whatever. But that's a real deep dive. It's called Tone Essentials. The creative bassist is a good jumping off point. You sort of learn how to apply theory, okay? Learn how to apply all the stuff that you learn, how to apply it, and then if you want to deep dive into the individual bits, you can do. So that's that. That's a pretty big answer to that questioner. I should be able to bring these things up on the screen. How the hell do I do that? I'm in StreamYard with this. Oh, you just put your... All right, that's easy enough. Right, I'll move right... I'll tell you what, I'll move right down to the bottom. If I miss any of your questions, just put them in, because otherwise I'll never get through them. What time is it now? 8:32. Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah, someone says, I thought chord tones was best after beginner to bass. I would say groove trainer and creative bassist. Need to do a bass line of Manny, something obscure like... Well, the one I was going to do is... I'm the Resurrection. So I was going to do that, and I still might do that, but I never got round to it last week. There was... I won't bore you with it, but there was something got in the way. Yeah, I will probably do a Manny bass line. Just in case nobody knows what I'm talking about there, it was Manny from The Stone Roses died the other day. Good to know about the playing volume. I play a bit harder than I should. I started learning before I owned an amp, so I had to play loud to hear it. Thank you, Mark. Oh, thank you very much. Stevie says, can you features of your website like a walkthrough showing the features, advantages and benefits might drive more traffic to the site? I'm not sure what you mean with that. There is a lot of stuff on the site that does stuff like that. Are you meaning like a YouTube video? To be honest, I've tried to avoid doing too much about the website on YouTube, because if I do that, it ends up... Well, one, it sounds a bit spammy, which I don't mind that per se, because you got to do that. But those videos don't do very well, because... You know, especially if I guess if I changed the title of it so it was kind of very strategically done. But you have to be careful what you do with YouTube, because before you know it, the channel just starts falling apart. I'm having trouble picking up speed. I'm moving back up here. I'm having trouble picking up speed. I'm stuck at 110 beats per minute, quarter notes. Oh, quarter notes at 110 beats per minute. Relax. That's one of the main things to do. And to be fair, don't be in too much of a rush to speed up. It comes in time, right? Don't worry about getting too fast too quick. Especially if you've only just started playing. It's just, you know, it could take years. I know that people don't want to hear that, but that is the reality. It can take a long time. Unless you're going to practice a ton. But if you practice a ton, it means that you will generally get quicker faster as well. All right, when I first started, I used to practice a lot, right? I posted a video of me playing when probably from about 1992 on one of the Talking Bass Facebook groups. And it was for a laugh, because it was funny watching me with my long hair and playing my bass, doing a lot of stuff. And somebody said, how long had you been playing at that point? And I said, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And they couldn't believe it. Now, this is not me bragging, because it wasn't that impressive. But they couldn't believe it based on how slowly they'd gone compared to me then. But there's a big difference. The person that was asking about that was a lot older. Now, if I was to start something now, right, I'm 50. So if I was to try... I don't know, learning violin, something like that, it's going to be slow going, you know, because I just don't have the time. I've got 3 kids, I'm running this, I've got a lot going on. I just don't have any time, right? So I might get a bit of practice. I might get 10 minutes here and there. You know, life gets in the way. You just don't get to practice as much when you get older. But when I was 15, man, I just practiced all day. If it was the summer holidays, right? I practiced from the minute I woke up till the minute I went to bed. It was that was all I was obsessed. But kids get like that. So, you know, I was playing a thing on there. There were a few things I was playing. I was doing typical, you know, the Billy Sheehan, all that kind of stuff and that. But I think I did. And then I think I did something like. So I was playing Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach. And it's not that hard, to be fair. But it sounds quite impressive, you know, for a bass player when you're like a 15-year-old. Well, at that point I was probably a bit older, probably 16. And I'd only been playing a year and a half. Now, it isn't that hard. And it isn't that, you know, that much. And there were a few other things I played. I think I played a Vido's Toccata in F as well. But there were, you know, I were into Billy Sheehan. I was doing all that stuff. But I practiced all day. I was practicing at least 10 hours a day, but not because I'd got some crazy, you know, like some Steve Vai practice routine where I'm playing arpeggios for this amount of time and then this. I was just playing along to Metallica records. I'd got some mixtapes. I was playing Megadeth and Pantera and stuff like that, and I was really into Billy Sheehan at the time, so I was probably working my way through Eat 'Em and Smile badly. And I'd got the Stu Am video, so I was going, you know, doing that thing. I'd learned how to go do that kind of thing. I'd got a few little slap tricks down. I could do that too. You know, little things. But like I say, I was 15 and practicing all day. Back to what you're saying about the speed thing. Don't be in a rush to do it. If you're not putting in those kind of hours, then it will take time. If you're practicing 10 hours a day, it won't take that long. But who the hell's got that amount of time on their hands when they get older? I know I haven't. If I started bass now, I wouldn't improve at the rate that I did when I first started. And the same goes for anybody. I'm sure many of you have learned instruments when you were younger. It's just the way of it. It's like, you know, you see these little Chinese kids of about 5 playing Chopin. You know, they put in the time, and that's all it is. So just don't be in a rush to try and increase speed. It will come naturally just by playing. Just keep playing, and you'll just be amazed. Eventually, you know, you just start to develop the dexterity in your fingers. But one of the other things worth mentioning is that you need to lighten up if you want to play faster. Think about a drummer, right? If you ever see a drummer playing a really, really fast drum roll, do they bring their hands back like this? I mean, maybe if it's one of them little monkey things that does that, but, you know, like a real drummer. You know, if you watch Buddy Rich playing those really fast rolls, it's all minimal movement, right? They're using, even on single stroke rolls, I mean, double stroke rolls, it's going to be smaller, but like on single stroke rolls, it's all small movement. And it's the same with bass. You need to relax. The faster a drummer drums, the more relaxed he'll be. The faster you go, the more relaxed. You know, you just lighten up as you go. And it's the same with picking. If you're picking, if you're doing this, there's a limit to how fast you're going to go. But the more you lighten up, you can keep that going forever. So you just lighten up on that picking hand. Lighten up this hand as well. One thing worth mentioning is that a lot of people grip the neck a little bit too much. You might notice if you're sometimes playing some stuff and you start cramping up in your hand, even if it's not very difficult stuff, usually it's because you're pressing down too hard. So if you were to take put the thumb on the back of the neck, let's play a C, 3rd fret of the A string. If you get that finger there, right? So here it is. And then I just touch that C, just over that fret. You'll get that harmonic, right? Then just start to press a little bit more, and eventually you'll get the note. Right, hold it there, that pressure, hold it there. Don't pick hard, just pick light. You might be amazed at how lightly you can actually hold that down. Now, if you're only just holding it down, the harder you pick, it's going to start fretting out. But I'm hardly touching it. That's what you want to aim for, just light playing, and you'll be able to pick faster. Okay, right. How long we got? I'm always wary at the end because I start thinking people are just going to get bored listening to me waffle on. So let me know if I'm getting boring. Right, let me go down a bit more. I'm struggling with bass lines that have the root. Let me show it. Boom. I'm struggling with bass lines that have the root following the flat 7 above. Same feet, 2 fingers above. Same fret, I think that means. I'm struggling with bass lines that have the root following the flat 7 above. Same fret, 2 fingers above. Any tips? Like this. So what I'm doing there is actually using the underside of my first finger. So that's actually what I would call a joint barring. So I was going to talk about this in the technique thing, actually. Perfect example of this would be if I'm playing C and then I want to move to a G below it on the 3rd fret. Well, let's say we're on the G and then I'm moving to the C. Instead of jumping, in which case you're going to get the gap, it's a lot smoother if I curl the finger for the G and flatten it for the C. You don't have to do it hard, you just basically shift the pressure. Shift the pressure from the front to the back. See, I'm just shifting that pressure, right? Same thing with that flat 7. So I've got I'm curled a little bit for the C, and then I use that bit of the finger to get that B flat up on the top. Can you see what's happening? So when I'm doing, a perfect example. So you don't need to use the second finger. You can just bar using that bit of the hand. Hopefully that answers your question. I like the chord tones course. Thank you very much. I'm really enjoying this session. Thank you very much. I've been playing bass for years. I feel like I haven't improved at all. How do I challenge myself to improve? I'm sure. Right, let's get this up. Let's get this one up. How do I challenge myself to improve? I'm sure you get this question all the time. I just arrived to here. Okay. It depends what you want to improve, right? So first things first, what are you bad at? That's what you need to think about. If you've got stuck and you're like, oh man, I just don't know what to practice. I find that just nuts when people say, oh, I've got nothing to practice. It's like, okay, well, what are you bad at? What's your reading like? Most people probably in that chat will say, it's bad, or I cannot read, right? Well, there you go. That's one thing. Now, you might not have thought about it before. You might not even want to learn how to read. But that's a part of playing. And if you're not very good at that, that's something to try. And then you can think, okay, well, what else? What else am I bad at? What's my harmony knowledge like? Do I know if I said what are the notes of the G7 flat 9 chord? Would you know that without having to look it up in a book? Theory. What's your general theory knowledge like? Again, that's something to work on. What's your repertoire like? This is a real good one for a lot of you because, reading and harmony involves a bit of study. But what's your repertoire like? How many, if you were to take a gig with a soul band and they got a set of soul tunes, how many of them do you think you'd know offhand? If it was a disco band, how many of them would you know? If it was a classic rock band, how many of them would you know? Just make a set list up on something like Spotify or get some CDs or whatever. Just find, let's say, the 20 most popular ones. Put them on a mixtape, put them on a playlist, and then just start learning them and just work your way through. How many ABBA tunes do you know? Get an ABBA set list up. Even if you hate them, doesn't matter. I guarantee as you start learning them, you probably have a newfound affection for them. Elvis tunes, how many of those do you know? Get an Elvis set list, start working through those. Beatles, how many of them do you know? Work through them. And it doesn't take long, but that's something, and that's basically developing your repertoire. And by doing that, when you start learning tunes, if you learn them with a bit of an analytical mind, a bit of an analytical ear, so that you start looking at what intervals there are, what the chord progressions are, really break them apart, you start to learn more and more about music. Like I played it earlier, just Lady Marmalade, something like that. On the face of it, it's like, well, what does that give you? Well, if you know that's G to C, well, G minor to C. Is it C minor 7? It's G minor to C. So you got that. You know that you've got the root, the fifth, flat 7, up to that minor third, and then down to the root note on the next one. You might not have known that. It might have just been some random notes. Oh, it's a pattern. Well, no, you need to see these bass lines as relative to what the chords are that are working. If you're playing, what's going on there? You start looking at, okay, we've got this G minor, the G pentatonic thing going on. Every bass line has stuff in there, the nuts and bolts of it, so you can every bass line will give you something, and then you just keep working through them. There's no excuse really. You can just make up some playlists, start working through them. So that's your playing. And then if there's problems technically, what techniques are you bad at? What you don't have to start slapping, tapping and popping. You just think, okay, well, what technical deficiencies? Go back through this lesson that I've just done. Have a look and think, okay, well, maybe my finger picking's not so good there. Work on that. I've got all these courses, obviously. It's a bit of a sell, but, I've got all these courses over at Talking Bass, and I cover all of this stuff. There's exercises for pretty much everything. So you think, okay, what do I want to work on? Have a look. And even if it's not with me, get a tutor from somewhere, go on SBL, go at Bass Buzz, whatever. Go on a live hang like this and ask questions. It doesn't matter who it's with. If it's a technical issue. So, but the seed at the start of all that is, what am I bad at? It's really got to be just a kind of self-evaluation. If you're self-taught, if you've got a teacher, they'll tell you. But that's the problem with being self-taught, because you just don't have any feedback and you don't know. And I was self-taught up until I went to music college. So, and then and even then, when I was at college, I was still kind of self-taught, but like Jocko says, it's, what did he say? It's like formally self-taught. That's kind of how I was. So anyway. Should mids be higher than bass and treble on bass EQ to cut through a song on a live gig? Yeah, well, I was about to say yes. But context is everything with this. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. If you want to cut through... I used to have, right, on my Fender Jazz, the Marcus Miller one that you might have seen me use? It's in there. I don't use it now because it's too bleeding heavy. But... I used to have an East preamp on that. I don't have it anymore. I've got a Glock on it now. But I used to have a mid control on there, a parametric mid, and you used to have it set to about 100 hertz, maybe 150, maybe 200. There was no numbers on it. It was just like low mids, and I used to set it to that. And if I was playing in a band, there was a particular band I was in. It was a 6-piece, got brass section, and if we were playing outside, the sound could just get lost in this mush, and so I'd bring up the mids and it'd just cut through. So much so that I often had to turn the volume down. I'd cut through some, I'd be like, oh, God. So, yeah, mids can be really good for that, especially in that low mid area. Best gear setup for classical, e.g. fretless, PJ Fender, Ibanez, etc. Whatever you share will be helpful. I'll put it up. What, you mean like classical, like, Well, I've got... Where is it? It's in there. My Ibanez, that SR1000 I've got, that's really good for that. Can't remember the damn thing. That solfeggietto thing that I did, that was on the Ibanez, and they're really fast fretboards. They've got really narrow neck. Well, actually by measurement it's not that narrow, but they feel very narrow under your fingers. They're really good for shredding. So Ibanez are pretty good, but anything really. I mean, as long as it's not got like a super thick neck. But then again, it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got a decent setup on it. I mean, I put reverb on. But I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all with that at all. I wouldn't go fretless. I used to have this thing when I was a kid. I really wanted to get a 6-string bass, fretless, and I was going to learn the whole of the Well-Tempered Clavier by Bach. That was this thing I'd got in my head, which I never did. I didn't get the 6-string, I didn't get a fretless, and I didn't learn all of the Well-Tempered Clavier. But I had this kind of idea that that's what I was going to do. So I was thinking 6-string fretless, but to be fair, I think it would have sounded god-awful if I'd have had a fretless doing that. I mean, if you're good at fretless, it would sound really nice, because it's kind of going to have that double bass kind of violin kind of sound, or cello, more likely cello. But yeah, you don't need fretless for that. Just good old 4-string fretted will do. You might run into problems range-wise if you're learning stuff like that. 24 frets would be better. I would advise 24 frets if you're going to use 4. Is it difficult to develop dexterity when one is starting at 50 years old? Well, I'm 50. I turned 50 in June. It depends what you want to play. If you wanted to play technical death metal, it'll take longer, but it doesn't mean you can't. But in terms of just playing normal bass lines, you should be fine. It's just the only difference is going to be the amount of time, and if you've got medical issues or like physical problems. But no, I don't think it should be. To get your dexterity up for playing normal stuff. If you want to be Billy Sheehan, that's a bit of a tall order. But as long as you practice. When I first started playing bass, I wasn't sure what I was doing. It's been 50 years now, and I can play really good. There you go. Hey Mark, just a note. I was trying to do a lesson on my Ultimate Theory 2 today, and it kept sticking. Could you have a look at some point, please? I'll bring that up so that isn't actually the website that's the problem. That'll be Vimeo. So I am in the process at the moment of, and by the way, that won't. Right, I'll address this bit first. So they're on Vimeo, and it'll actually be the fact that the internet connection or your internet or whatever will be playing up a little bit, or it could be. It depends on if you get an error message. Sometimes, especially Apple products, don't play nice with embedded video. They throw a bit of a fit because they see it as almost like a security risk when they've got scripts on a website for embeds. So if you ever get that one where it says, I can't play this because of a privacy problem or something like that, which you'll also get on SBL and on Bassbuzz as well, because we all host at the exact same place. We're all on Vimeo. But Vimeo charge a fortune to do this. This was another thing. So me and Scott have both talked about this, and I probably might have a word with Josh about it as well. So Vimeo have put all the prices up, and I just, it's a right rip-off. So, and I don't like, sometimes, because, I mean, it's very good quality, right? They don't really compress anything. So you get very good quality on it. But they don't use any VPNs or anything like that. Sorry, not VPNs, CDNs. So they don't use any content delivery stuff. So it kind of is what it is from the source. So I'm moving across a lot of it to Gumlet. Everybody's been looking for alternatives. The whole planet, right? We've all been looking for alternatives for video from Vimeo. And Gumlet seem pretty good, and they use CDNs all the time. So the last two courses, Creative Bassist and actually I think I've moved up. Have I moved over any others? I know Creative Bassist is all there on Gumlet, and it is like lightning. So it's on CDNs, and the way it delivers it is a lot different. Some people sometimes, again, they get that thing. They'll get error messages from certain things, often because of antivirus software or extensions that are in the browser. I mean, it changes every time. But for the problem you're having there is probably just a bit of a problem with the connection. Because it's a lot of bandwidth. But like I say, I'll be moving them all over to Gumlet soon, so then they'll play a lot better. But send me an email anyway if you're still having problems. Let me know, and if it's a problem with the computer or whatever, we might be able to. I've sorted this out for loads of people. It's usually a security extension if you can't play it. If it won't play, it's often a security extension, and then you just kind of allow it through and it's fine. Hi Mark, can you advise about tingling fingers? Hold on, I need to get rid of that one first. Tingling fingers? No. It depends. I mean, it could be a circulation issue. I'm not too sure. I mean, I've had tingling fingers before. I mean, I had tingling fingers early on because I'm doing this pentatonic course. And my fingers were hurting because I've just been playing too much. So that sometimes happens. Maybe you just need to rest. Mixtape showing your age. C60, not C90, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I used to love my mixtapes. I know that on one of the mixtapes I'd got Disposable Heroes by Metallica. I used to play through that. Damage Incorporated. There was Elephant Gun by Dave Lee Roth. Can't remember any others. I'd got one, that was my hard one. So I'd be doing like Elephant Gun with the old, like 3-finger picking thing. And then there'd be the Disposable Heroes thing, which I always played with 3 fingers. And it turns out that Cliff Burton wasn't even doubling that. It was actually playing something different. But that, just keeping going with that and that, which I think I played as, how did I do it? Yeah, something like that. I was using 3 fingers for it at the time. But man, I used to cramp up loads playing through that tape. Complete newbie, any tips on ear learning? There's a ton of Polish songs I want to learn, but finding a tab for these is impossible. There's no way around it. You just got to start trying your best, and you just get better at it over time. I know that's not what people want to hear. You can learn solfege. You can actually do. I mean, I've got the ear training course over at Talking Bass, which might help, and it's actually quite cheap, that one, because it's only volume 1. I'm moving on to other ones, but you basically have to learn what chords sound like, on a basic level. Here's a major, and here's a minor. What's the difference? Well, major is a little bit happy. Minor is a little bit sad. That's a very, very, very basic kind of thing. But then learning things like intervals, so knowing that So ba ba is a perfect fifth. You know, and even little things like working up through ba 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 ba, like do re mi fa sol la ti do. You kind of learn all that when you do solfege, but just actually singing what you play as you play it. That's another way of getting better. But you really do need to learn what chord progressions sound like, and the best way is actually just with experience. The more of them that you learn, the more you start to hear, just in general. Yeah, it's there's no quick fix for that. The best way is to just start transcribing yourself, and you'll get them wrong. That's the problem. You'll get stuff wrong, but that's part of learning. You learn the most when you're getting it wrong. Is it normal to hear some fret noise when practicing at home? I don't mean fret buzz, just I hear some noise from the fret, say on E string when pressing down on the frets, or is this just a setup issue? That might be a setup issue, or you might be hitting too hard. You know, just trying to make... Can you hear out there? I'm getting fret buzz. That's because I'm really whacking it. Lighten up and see whether it still does it. My alternate plucking tone is a little uneven because my index finger is less round than the middle finger. The index is more slanted. How can I get them to sound the same? Try. I used to practice this. This is one thing that I did do of my own accord, and it actually really helped me later on. I tried making my finger picking really consistent between both fingers. So if you're picking, just try and... There's no way around it. You just have to try and make them the same, right? So start by accenting the first one. So let's say that you're going 2 1 2 1 2 1. It's hard to see with that thing in the way, but like 2 1 2 1 2 1, right? Accent on the 2. So now switch so that you accent. Hold on, let me turn the reverb off, and then accent on the first finger. So you're playing one very light and then one harder. So you're just getting used to accents basically. So we're not doing consistent yet. We're just doing the accents. So accenting second finger, switch it round. Now try 2 1 2 1, but you're just accenting on the first finger. So you're doing off beats. Just get used to accenting. Once you can accent, you'll have a little bit more control over going quieter and louder. Or humma, 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 humma. Okay? Then try getting rid of the accent. So you just have to, regardless of how the shape of your fingers is, it's about the velocity that you're hitting it. So you just have to think, okay, well, I'm doing it a bit too much on that finger. Stick with the same alternate pattern, 2 1 2 1 2 1. Stick with that to begin with, and then if you're getting problems, just switch, lighten up on the one that's too loud. Just keep listening to it. Think, okay, that needs to be lighter. That needs to be lighter. Oh, no, it's too much now. And then it's just a matter of that. The little light's just turned off behind, hasn't it? Right. I'm going to have to get moving in a minute. So I'll just do last few. Been playing approaching 4 years. Stumbled upon Mark's courses in year 1. It was a huge reason I can play well now. His courses I'm playing live with others. All you need beyond that is time. Yes. Walter Sassano. As a beginner, my first bass is a 5-string. I think I'm at a disadvantage from the start. Any tips? No, not really. If you start on 5-string, that's fine. You'll get used to it. My problem was I started on 4 and then moved to 5 when I was a pro. I hate saying that. The pro. I'm always putting it in inverted commas. Like pro means you're better. I've known some crap pros. Oh no, I got here late. Sorry, Elmo. Hey Matt, how do the slap essentials compare to simple steps to slap? Simple steps to slap goes a bit deeper. I've got rid of that now because it was just too old. But if you've got simple steps to slap, you don't really need slap essentials because everything that's covered in slap essentials is covered in simple steps to slap bass. You could get slap essentials if you want because you might want the grooves, but there are quite a few of the grooves. Well, not that many, but I've used some of the grooves from simple steps in slap essentials. So, it starts out really simple with the grooves. It's basically like it's Groove Trainer Volume 3. So it starts with that kind of thing, and then gradually just brings in more. So it'll be like that kind of thing. Then you've got the, bringing in the pops. Just gradually bringing in more stuff. There's a bit of double thumbing in it. What else do I put in there? There's There's like a lot of the little that kind of cross hammer thing, all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. This slap essentials. I really like the grooves that I've got in it. But if you've already got simple steps, you probably don't need it. But if you want to, you can. I can't. Right, next up. I can't see to get basics of slap and pop. The sustain doesn't sustain. This is one of those things where that course, that slap essentials I was just talking about, would be really beneficial for you. Because I really start simple and then just gradually build up. You probably need to just focus on the thumb stuff to begin with. A lot of people want to, they're straight into all that, and you don't put the pops in to begin with. It's just, and like I said earlier when I was doing the technique bit, it's all about that home position. It's about note control. I mean, my strings are dead as hell here, but like, you basically learn to play with the thumb like you would, with a fingers. One thing you could try is doing rest stroke with the thumb, which is what you need for double thumbing. So instead of bouncing, badoink, which you'd still need to do for your standard, that kind of thing. The Mark King thing is all bounce. But if you want to do, if you want to get a bit more body, so for when you're playing higher and stuff like that, or whatever, rest stroke's cool. So you actually slap through. So you slap. Let me get that thing out of the way. So instead of bouncing and coming back, you bounce and come to rest on the next string. And you'll find that you get the same sound, but you've got more body. Larry Graham plays like that, as does Marcus Miller. You've just got more of that bottom end and a lot more bounce, body to it. So in terms of sustain, you'll probably get a little bit more. So that might be something. I would advise possibly the Slap Essentials course. I mean, you might already have it, but that's the one. And like I say, I mean, to anybody that's not been here for the early stuff, there's a Black Friday sale on at the moment, just like everybody else. So 30% discount on all the courses. So if you've liked any of this stuff that I've done today, or if you like how I teach, some of those courses on there are massive. Simple steps to sight readings, like 25 hours long, 700 pages of exercises. It's massive. My courses are a little bit weird like that. Like a lot of the courses on things like SBL and that, I mean, some of them are big on SBL, but like they're generally a lot more, the shorter. Mine, I spend like 6 months to a year on each one, and they're just like, cover everything. So like the theory one that I did, Ultimate Music Theory, it starts at absolute beginner and goes to advanced jazz degree level. So I've basically put everything that I know about harmony and music theory. Well, not everything, but like, up to advanced, up to so the theory stuff that I cover in there, it goes all the way up to Coltrane changes and like advanced jazz harmony, and it's the stuff that you would cover on a jazz degree. I know that because I did one. So it goes all the way up to that. So that's a massive course. You know, it just goes on and on and on. And maybe I do them, maybe they're too big. Maybe I shouldn't do them that big. But I like that kind of comprehensive thing. I mean, you get value for money, that's for sure. Because they just go on and on and on. But yeah, sometimes I suppose some of them could be a bit intimidating as a course, you know, because it's like, oh man, I wanted to get through this quick, you know, and I'm going to be doing this for the next 25 years, you know, it's that kind of thing. But yeah, I think maybe yeah, Slap Essential. How did I get onto that? There was a reason. Oh yeah, the Black Friday sale. So yeah, so there's a lot of courses on there. There's the reading, creative bassist, where you learn how to jam and you learn how to create bass lines and riffs and how to solo and all that kind of stuff. Technique builder that builds up your technique. There's yeah, check them out. There's a load. The classical ones are cool. I go through some classical pieces and coach you through them. I've never been able to pick up slapping technique. Any tips on practicing slap? Well, I've just been talking about slap a little bit. I would advise going to the Slap Essentials course. I know that doesn't answer it perfectly, but to be fair, because I'll be getting off in a minute, that's a pretty big subject to go on. I will do some more live hangs before the end of this week. So that Black Friday sale is not going to end until the end of this next week. I'm going to keep it going. So this week I might do a few more live hangs. So I might do one on slap. So look out for emails. Is it okay to slap through and not bounce? That's what I was just talking about, yeah. I bought one of your courses, but on the reading and groove, there is no possibility to select few bars and loop play them. Do you have plan to upgrade your courses? Which course were you meaning there? It's very difficult to have like a looping thing on there because it's all downloads for it. There are some courses I am going to upgrade massively. So sight reading is one of them that I'm going to do a complete overhaul on. Because remember, a lot of these things, I've had Talking Bass on now for 13 years. And the first course, I think, was in 2013 or 14. And it's old. You know, like basic fundamentals. It doesn't look like the courses that I do. Well, sorry, not just the courses, but everything that I do now. I look like a different person. I present differently. I mean, when I started doing this, I didn't have hardly anything in terms of gear. I didn't have a nice DSLR like I've got there. I just didn't have much. I had to sell most of the stuff that I sold loads of gear to finance it, and even then it was terrible. So some of those look quite old now. So I need to update the visuals for definite. But also, a lot of the sound quality wasn't as good as I'd have it now. And I know a lot more about it all now. I know more about presenting. I know, you know, the whole thing's different. So I'm going to redo probably most of them in order. But, I mean, that's kind of where Slap Essentials came from, you know, redoing that. But I think Groove Trainer, I'm going to add some actual music over the tracks. So a lot of the stuff in Groove Trainer is just bass line and drums. So I'm going to have it so that there's like music on there as well, the other instruments. And I will have them, instead of it just being the drum part that you can play along to, I will have a looping of it that goes on for, let's say, 6 minutes. Just one groove round and round that you can just play along to. So if it's Groove Trainer, that one will be one of the ones that I do quite soon because that'll be an easy fix. I've been watching your videos since 2014. I know, I see you a lot. You're always here. That's amazing. I mean, is there anybody else there that's actually been watching since 2014? Because I can't imagine that there's that many. I mean, I was looking at the email list the other day and thinking, man, I bet most of these have stopped playing. You know. My question was up at the beginning of the Q&A. Can you explain how to use a compression pedal properly? Not quickly in a thing like this. I will do a video on compression. I actually talk about compression. There's a full lesson on it on the Basic Fundamentals course. But what I'll do is I'll figure some stuff out so that, because I want to make it's hard to teach compression. Because everybody has different compressors as well. It's like you could, like, let's say that you got a studio engineer to talk about compression. Most people have compressor pedals, like what we got. I ain't got one in here, but like an MXR or whatever. And everything's different. So you've got like the attack and sustain, and then you might have. Sometimes it'll be called threshold. Sometimes you'll get a compressor where there's just one knob. So and you got to set your ratio and everything. I will do a video on it. And then, I mean, I'm not the greatest guy when it comes to compression, but I do use it. I don't use it as much. I don't use it live. I never see the point because I just, the sound guy usually is slamming a lot of compression on. You don't really want to be compressing a compressed signal. I mean, you can use it for effect. But it's very rare that you do use compression for effects. It's just to even out your sound. But you were asking about getting the fingers consistent. Be wary of trying to use compression for that, because if you've got a very definite difference in the sound between them, like that, compression will change it a bit. But there are tonal and timbral sort of things that happen with the fingers when you're picking lighter and harder. And you will still, even if you get them pretty close with like a real high ratio on the compression, you'll still hear the difference because there'll be a bit of the tone will be different because it's been hit quieter. So, less hard. So, yeah. Don't try and use compression to make up for technical deficiencies. That's one thing worth pointing out. Does playing staccato with any technique like slap, double thumb, tapping, or standard playing strengthen control and muscle strength in both the right and left hands and subsequently increase speed? Nah, it doesn't increase speed, and it's not really going to increase. It's not really about muscles, to be honest. There's not really much muscle going on in any of the... Like, you can have incredibly strong hands. You could be Devon Larratt or whatever, like arm wrestler. And, or you could be doing massive, like weights and stuff on your forearms. And it won't make any difference to your actual bass playing. In fact, it could hinder it. It's a bit like being muscular doesn't help as a boxer. I mean, you're going to need decent muscle tone for it. But it's like, you see some guys that are like massive and real muscle bound, and that doesn't equate to power. You look at someone like Deontay Wilder, who's like one of the greatest punchers, and he's like really gangly. I mean, he's got muscle tone, but he's not like a big beefy guy, if you know what I mean. So muscles don't really come into play. It's more like ligaments and tendons and things, and dexterity. And to be honest, technique are just plain lighter. You'd be amazed how a lot of it comes down to that in the end as you start to develop the coordination between, because a lot of it's coordination as well, because a lot of the time you're not really going to be playing like one note all the time. I mean, you might do in metal bands occasionally where you're just doing that, but a lot of the time what you're really wanting is to be able to you wanted to move around, and that's a totally different thing, and that's to do with coordination between the hands. So yeah, I don't think playing staccato, so like going like it's not really gonna, that won't really do much. Okay, so it looks like that was the last of the questions. So I'll get moving. What time are we on? Oh, it's 9:20. So I'll get moving. It's been really cool doing this, and I will start doing a few more of them. I've really missed doing live streams. Like I say, I've not really done one for about a year, and there's a load of new people watching the Talking Bass videos. So I will start doing more live hangs, and it's really good to just chat to people. And you get to listen to me yakking on with my stupid accent, which is always good fun, I guess. One thing you might have all noticed, because since I've been doing these live hangs, Danny Sapko's actually got quite a following now. He's actually become quite famous online. I've known Danny for years, and you might have noticed that we've both got the same accent. Because he's from Bradford and I'm from Wakefield, which is just down the road. So me and Danny Sapko are pretty much the same. And as is Scott, although Scott's from Carlisle, Scott Devine, that is, from SBL. He's from Carlisle originally, which is further north. That's up near Scotland. That's in Cumbria. But he's been in Leeds for God knows how long. I met Scott in 98. I think it was 97, 98, something like that, at music college. And when I had a skinhead and he had curtain haircut. And so he's been around there since then. So he's got a pretty Yorkshire accent now. So like me, Danny and Scott are all the Yorkshire lot doing it. So but Danny really plays it up. Danny's funny. You might have seen, some of you might have seen the one where he's taking the piss out of me, where he puts it on he's like, oh, I can't get this double thumbing thing down, and then he picks up his phone and says, oh, I know, I need to look online and find out how to do it. I know, I'll look at Mark at Talking Bass, and he puts it on, and it's too bright, because it was the old white background, and he's like, Jesus! But he told me he was going to do it before he did it. I'm not bothered though, I love it. But because we've all it's got the same kind of sense of humour. Let's see. Can you play Speed Demon? What, the Michael Jackson thing? What, like Federico Malaman? No. I tried learning it once, how he does it with his, because it's a synth originally. But I might have a go at that now, because I think my thumb's a little bit better for double thumb, so I might actually have a blast at it. Do a live stream at least once a month. Well, I used to do 2 a week. In fact, I used to do 4 a week. I used to do 2 on a Saturday and 2 on a Sunday. So I'd do 1 in the morning on Saturday and 1 in the evening because of the time differences for everybody. So it would be like, one of them would be for like Australia and the other one would be for like America. And so I'd do them on 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday. And on the Sunday one, I'd always have like a Sunday dinner. And I'd come up and do it about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And back then we lived at this other house and I used to do it in this little converted loft thing. And I'd always have a bottle of wine. And I'd be hammered by the end of the live streams. So, I won't be doing that. It kind of got a bit silly. And I don't drink red wine anymore. It just makes me feel tired all the time. You can tell I've not been doing this for a while because my voice is going. When you play a slap groove that you wrote, is that something you write by using music theory or you just go with what sounds good? This is that thing I was saying earlier on about that creative basis course that I did. It's all about musical vocabulary. It's not really... You never write anything based on theory or even whether it sounds good. It's like, it is what it is. It's like when you talk. Do you say something because it sounds good? Do you say it because it's grammatic? Were you influenced by the grammar? No. You're expressing yourself. You're saying the thing that you want to say. And that's the same. So if you go, like when you said about the slap thing. So if I go... I just made that up, right? It's just part of my vocabulary because it's like I know that sounds like that. That's a kind of rhythm that'll play quite a bit. It's part of my vocabulary. And then that move, that's something I'll have done a million times. It just comes out. I know that major 6 to that flat 7 up on the top, C sharp to D, I know that sounds like that. And then It's you're talking through the instrument. So it's not. It shouldn't be that you're thinking theory. I know the theory behind it because I know the theory, but I'm not doing it based on the theory. You don't think theory when you're creating music. I mean, it's there in the same way that you know how to spell the words that you say, or that you know how to construct a sentence, but you don't think about it in terms of, what's a noun, what's a verb, and what's an adjective. It's like, it's not like that. Although, to be fair, with music, it's a little bit more involved because, of course, you've got to play over chords, so you've got to know what chord tones are and stuff like that. And in that sense, I probably would. Like, if it's going to be... So if it's something around it... So if the chord is going to be it's a C minor 7, they're the notes. I know that the minor third's in there, so I can use that. It's got a fifth in it, so that's a chord tone. It's got a flat 7, use that. All of those notes were just chord tones, apart from the chromatic, but they're all chord tones. So yeah, I might be thinking of chord tones. That's kind of the framework. If I wanted to think of a chord scale, might think Dorian. So it depends on what the overall modality is. But like, just outlining some of those notes. So yeah, you could think of it like that, but you can't just think about the chord. You can't just think about the harmony and the chord tones and the theory. There's got to be putting it into action. There's got to be rhythm in there. There's got to be melody in there. You've got to speak through the instrument. It's not enough to just know what the theory is behind it, because theory doesn't make music. How do you? I mean, even if you know, like all of those notes that you know you can use, that's just a palette. But how do you use that palette? You gotta put it into action. You've got to actually attach those notes to those pitches to rhythms, and create a cohesive thing. A musical phrase. And so it's not about just theory, and it's not just about it sounds good, because then how do you know what's going to sound good? What you're going to do? Randomly play notes until you find something that sounds good? That's not. I mean, you can do that. You can just arse around with playing random notes until something fits. But that's kind of a rookie way of doing it, isn't it? It's like you're better off being able to just express that. You think when David Gilmour plays a guitar solo, he's randomly choosing notes. He's not thinking theory, but he knows what the framework is. He knows what the notes are he can choose, but there's got to be a reason he plays them. There's a reason he'll play a bend here and a note there. It's because of vocabulary. It's because he knows what it's going to sound like. He could sing it, and he is singing through the instrument. It's a different thing. That's why these kind of arguments that you get going on in things like forums and stuff, where people are going, it's all about this, and it's all about that, it's all about emotion, it's all about this, and it's all about that. No, you need to know theory, you need to know theory. And these arguments develop between theory and feeling, and theory and feeling, and expression, and this and that. And it's like it's totally missing the point. That's not what music is. There's principles in there. Learning theory is incredibly important, well, depending on what you want to do, obviously. But there's sound, and there's phrasing, there's rhythm. It's a massive thing, a massive subject, and some people just fall upon these things by ear, and that's great. Some people need a little bit more work. They need to know what these things are. Some people could just base it on basic patterns. Some people need to know the notes. But it's a huge thing, and it's all about vocabulary. That's the key. And that creative basis course that I've done, that's what I talk about. All that stuff I've just talked about, you develop that through that course. But yeah, in terms of what sounds good, well, I don't think anybody's going to write something just because they think it sounds bad, are they? I mean, it's like you're going to choose stuff that you like to play, that you think sounds good. But I mean, good is very subjective, isn't it? There's going to be the stuff that works. So, like if the chord is playing and it's like a C major like that, right? And then you play, now that might work depending on the note that comes after. But if you play, like, let's say we've got what we're going to play. A lot of people might think that sounds bad. I mean, it depends on the context, obviously. But, if you're moving into a C, it'd work. But that's what I mean. It's like there's more to it than just sounding good or bad as well, because again, like I said, that's subjective. It's expression. It's what you want to create. Do you want to play a bad note? I'd say a bad note. Do you want to play something that sounds dissonant? Forget bad, forget good. You've got consonance and you've got dissonance. You've got stuff that blends with the chord, and you've got like that. And then you've got stuff that works with it, like that, right? So there's varying degrees of consonance and dissonance. And you learn what all of those are. So when you play something that goes like that, it's going to have to kind of resolve. Or you could just sit with it and make it, and enjoy the dissonance. Or maybe add a different note that turns it consonant. Like that. But still, it's what you want to create, which in your mind will always be what's good, right? If you play something and you wanting it to sound bad, I mean, you might want, which to a lot of people might be like, oh, that sounds a bit weird. Yeah, but what if you want to play something that sounds weird? Les Claypool does that all the time. So yeah, a lot of the arguments that you get and the opinions that you get around it. You see these arguments going on in these kind of forum kind of debates. Sometimes miss the point, I think, because it's trying to turn it into kind of, it's the story of the world, isn't it? That kind of polarized binary thinking. It doesn't really get you anywhere. And you get it with this. Is it emotion or is it technique? That kind of crap. There's more to the craft of music than just like little things like that, like what's bad, good, or emotional or technical and stuff. There's a whole world of music to immerse yourself in. Right. Right. You'd like more lessons on pick? I've got a pick over there. I'll do some more on pick playing. I did one on that lesson last week. Wood, Alice in Chains. And there's a few I've done. Like if you look up the Holy Wars Megadeth one that I did, I do quite a bit on pick playing on that. And I have actually done like quite an extensive getting started with pick playing, but I've done quite a few pick lessons actually. You just have to find them. If the bass line was played with a pick, often I will do pick and I will talk about the pick patterns that are on there. But anyway, it's getting on, and as you can see, strap fell off in the end. That's all falling apart, isn't it? Look at that. What a cock up. Right, light's gone off behind me. Okay. It's been great to see everybody, and I will probably do another live stream before the end of the week. Like I said, remember, Black Friday sales, so all the courses, there's 30% off them all. And I will see you all again very, very soon. I'll see you later.